Hello, everyone from Chelsea Fan TV. We've got another episode of the CFTV preview show with myself and Kev, getting ready for the Aston Villa game on Sunday at 2 o'clock. We've got a lot to talk about. Kev. I mean, usually after a nil-nil, people don't really have much to say because it's a bit of a nothing game, isn't it? There's no goals. There's not really a lot to say, but not quite the case with us. Things are just as hectic as ever. I mean, that seems to be the reoccurring theme at Chelsea. But listen, let's get straight into it because I know you had a few thoughts that you wanted to get off your chest, especially regarding the Bournemouth game. So before we
Yeah.
actually start talking about Aston Villa, let's just touch on what happened there. I mean, what did you think about it, Kev? Obviously, not a great result, but we didn't lose.
Yeah.
Can we take positives out of that game and not just in terms of what we saw on the pitch, but we saw a lot of things with the fans as well.
First and foremost, no. What can I say? I did predict a 1-1 draw. I just didn't think we'd have enough to win the game. Going into the game, there was a lot of pressure for Pochettino to get the win, and I don't think the players stepped up to the mark as much as they could have. Very unlucky not to go away with the 3 points. Obviously, Sterling inches away from with that free kick, but sometimes it's not going to be your day, and I think it's been that way all season. We cannot seem to unlock teams, unlock the opponents, let's say, and get into the goal scoring positions. And when we do, we're usually missing chances. But
Yeah,
for us to be booing our own players, it's unbelievable. It's embarrassing and shocking. All the bad words I could think of right now is describing the toxicity of this club. Chilwell being one of our longest servants in this team, vice captain. There's only 3 left of our Champions League winning squad in this team, but we want to go and boo him. A player that's not been playing in his right position. Yeah, he's coming off the bench and he's coming to clap the fans, and we're booing him. Don't do it. It's not Chilwell's fault we are in this position. It's not Chilwell's fault he's been playing that position. It's not Chilwell's fault that we've signed all these youth players. It's not Chilwell's fault that we've got rid of a Champions League winning squad. It's not Chilwell's fault. So why are we booing him? It's so totally unfair. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. Even if he plunges to worse performances, it's got to stop. You've got to back your players through thick and thin. You can't turn against the players. And this is where he'll turn against the club. And before you know it, he'll be in a Man City shirt falling out. So that's what we don't want. We want to stick by our players and we want to fight for this little difficult period because it was never going to be easy with signing 20 youth players. It's never going to be easy. I don't know where we got this idea that we're going to be challenging for top 4. We're far off it. It's a building process. We've got to be patient and we've got to stand and back these players.
yeah. I mean, I was really disappointed when I saw that. I was confused more than anything, to be honest with you, Kev, because I just thought like, if you're gonna boo them, at least boo them when they've lost. I mean, we didn't even lose.
Mm.
We managed to keep a clean sheet. That's a positive. I think Sanchez had a great game. I mean, I've been saying it since the beginning of the season. I think his distribution is the best in the league up there with Edison, and I think people are starting to appreciate his goalkeeping abilities as well. But I mean, moving on from that, still sticking to what we've been speaking about. I was doing my fan cam on my own, Kev, and before I started filming, Jacob's dad, Trevor, he
Yeah.
said to me, Alex, like you wouldn't believe it. I was clapping Thiago Silva, and I had fans telling me to stop clapping him. And I was thinking, like, there's all this talk about, supporting youth players and being angry because we have a young squad, because everyone talks about that. It's like you're going to boo the oldest player in your squad, the most experienced player, the most successful player, uh, the most. Well, realistically at the moment he is our captain, isn't he? Reece James is out. I know Conor Gallagher had the captaincy and obviously Chilwell's vice captain, but the only reason for that is because they're more likely to be in the future of Chelsea, whereas Silva, obviously, he's almost 40. It makes sense not to put him as captain, but he is still that leader. So
Yeah.
there's just a lack of respect. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It's got to stop, man. And the more we get onto these players' backs, is the less they're gonna look at all the banners we've had out for these players and the support we've given these players over last few years through all the shit we've been through. There's a timeline of events that we've been through, and we've stuck by these players. So why now are we turning against the players? So all the love and everything else that he's got for this club could turn in an instant, and it could get even more toxic than what it is now. And who are we left with if Thiago Silva doesn't want to play, if Chilwell doesn't want to play? What other leaders have we got in this squad? Not one. You got to have at least a couple leaders in your team, minimum. We haven't got none apart from Silva. So if we turn against these players that are going to hold this team together and give all the experience to these youth players, what's going to happen? We're just going to fall further and further down the pecking order. It's very stupid, very immature, and it's disappointing. Like, I can't speak because I haven't been to a game of season, but I will be telling in a couple of weeks. And I'll get behind my team, even if we lose 2-3-0 to Burnley. Yeah, I will be clapping every single player off because it's not their fault. It's not the players' fault to be in this position. It's the board. The board have shipped out all these players and left us with youth players that are unexperienced. So what are we expecting to achieve? What are we expecting to achieve? We're expecting to be challenging for the Premier League. It doesn't really matter how much money you spend, it's where you spend it. And we haven't spent the money in the right areas.
It's interesting as well when you talk about it because it is the board's fault. Obviously, they're the ones who need to be held accountable. They're the ones in charge of signing players, renewing contracts, and obviously player sales as well. But when you look at the players we brought in as well, under the new ownership, I mean, Fofana's injured, and Kunku, Lavia, Chukwuemeka was going to be a key part of this squad this season. I think we all knew that, especially from what we saw in pre-season and against West Ham. Reece James is out, Badia Shiel, even Caicedo and I think Madueke is starting to come back now. But there's some big players, Kev, and I think that everyone talks about we can't make excuses based on the injuries. Why? Of
Of
course we
course you
can.
can. We've got. Have you seen the squad that we've got? The squad that we've got injured could literally play against the squad that we've got now, and it would be literally identical. Like, to be honest, yeah, I believe the squad that we've got that injured would probably beat the squad that we've got now. Like, think about it. You'd have a back four of James, Fofana, Chiloba, and Badashile left back. You'd have a midfield of Lavia and Casado. You'd have Brahoa. You'd have Nkuku and Shoka. Right, that's the volume of players we got out.
That's not bad,
So
to be
okay,
fair.
you can't make excuses because you've got injuries, but in the same sense, we've got a full squad of probably starting players that are injured. Yeah, and like literally seeing, I was watching Match of the Day, seeing the game, and this struck me as well. We spent £1 billion, and you look at both the benches for the Bournemouth game. You would have probably picked the Bournemouth bench over the Chelsea bench. But like I said, we've still got 12, three of them probably being world-class players that are injured in James, Fofana, and Nkunku out injured. So, what can we do? All we can do is back the players. It's going to be a difficult game against Villa. I'm not expecting anything from the game, but we've still got to get behind the team regardless because it's not the players' fault. The board have completely stripped the team of the medical staff, of everything, all the DNA of a winning club have been stripped by this board. So what are we expecting? We've got 12 injuries. What do you think? Why do you think we've got 12 injuries? Because the people that look after the players are not the same. They're not the same identity, they're not the same quality in bringing these players back for the process of injuries, rushing them back, they're getting injured again. So everything lies on the owners. We shouldn't be turning against the players. That's not what we do.
It's funny you said that because actually, when we had the previous medical team, I remember when just basically when Abramovich announced that he was going to leave and he was going to sell up, we played Luton, I think, the same day. At that point, we actually had more injuries than we had now. So that's telling you obviously that Thomas Tuchel did a great job. But I
Oh,
actually think it kind of removes the excuse of blaming the medical staff. I think just hearing that shows me that it's not all the medical staff's fault. I think the management obviously has a part to play, but you look at some of these players that are always available. I think a lot of it is just them taking care of themselves.
It's
Your mic.
signing the right players as well. It's signing the right players as well. Alex, what did you just say? Sorry.
I thought your mic wasn't working, but
Oh no, sorry.
then you
Yeah,
spoke.
He's signing the right identity players. We've signed Lavia, for instance. Yeah, he's not had a preseason. He's had injury problems. He's come back and he's out for 8 weeks. Caicedo never had a preseason. He's struggling right now. And King Q's had a previous history of injuries. Fofana has had previous. We're signing players, okay. They've got high potential. They are very good players, but they are very high risk to injuries. So everything about what's going on in the club at the moment is nothing to do with the players. It's about the board and the people that are making these signings totally getting it wrong. So what can we do? The only people we should be turning against really is the people upstairs, but we can't. So we're taking the easy route and booing players, which is not fair.
Well, I don't think you should be booing anyone, and I think that the board have a different challenge because the fans judge the players game by game and the manager game by game. But the board should never be judged like that. They should be judged season by season, which is the way I also look at it with Pochettino, which is why I'm very confident. I mean, I predicted we get Champions League football. I'm still not saying that's not going to happen because anything can happen, Kev. And when we talk about congestion, we don't have it. And I'm going to keep saying it. And when players inevitably do come back in that sort of January period, we're going to be stronger. If the current squad's fit and other players recover, we're going to have more depth, and we're not going to have fatigue that other teams like Arsenal, Man City, Newcastle, Man United, Aston Villa, who we're going to speak about a little bit more later in the video. We don't have those issues. Aston Villa, funny enough, they literally played what?
2 days
yesterday,
ago.
and they lost 3-2. So they're going to be tired. They've played an extra game.
They did rest quite a few players, though. To be truthfully honest, they literally played more or less a second string team. Kept all the big guns out, but in respect of that, it doesn't really matter. Villa are a good team, and I think they've built in the right fashion. They've brought in experienced, quality players, and experienced manager, and there's no pressure with Aston Villa like at Chelsea. A manager of Unai Emery's quality can come in and do his job. No pressure to win titles, no pressure to get Champions League. With us, expectations are very high, so it's total different. And I think Villa, they'll come. If you want to get into that, do you want to talk about that, or do you want to anything else you want to talk
about? Man. No, let's get into it. I mean, one of my first points that I wanted to speak about, Kev, is how we are polar opposites to Aston Villa. Now, what do I mean by that? So if you look at Aston Villa's fixtures, let's just look at the Premier League as an example. I mean, the only game that they didn't score more than, well, actually, now that I think about it, they've scored in every game. And they average more than 2 goals a game this season. They beat Everton 4-0. They beat Hibernian 5-0. Burnley 3-1. Hibernian 3-0 again. Palace 3-1. I mean, these guys can score goals. I mean, they do leak quite a lot as well. But to be honest with you, if I'm Aston Villa, I'm just taking a 1-0 win. I've got a low block. I mean, everyone knows how to play against us. You've got to be clinical. And the difference between us and them is they have players who can score, and we don't at the moment.
Nah, but Alex, we were saying the same thing last season. We have players that don't score. We're saying it under Potter. We've got players that don't score. Let me just give you a bit of fun facts. In the last 7 days alone, ex-Chelsea players that have left in the last transfer window, Lukaku scored 2. Ziyech scored an absolute weldy. Callum Hudson-Odoi scored an absolute weldy. Kante scored an absolute weldy. And Felix scored 2 in the Champions League just gone. So that's 3, 4, 5. That's 4. That's 10 goals in the last week from ex-Chelsea players. So what is it? It's not. I don't think it's the players right now. I just think it's something that needs to happen. Are we cursed, or because we were saying the same thing last season? We've got players that don't score. Guaranteed. You put Cole Palmer in the City team. Okay, different team. A team that's going to create a lot more chances, but he's going to score. You put Sterling in the City team, he's going to score. Aubameyang has gone and scored for Marseille the other day. Players are scoring for other teams. Why aren't they scoring for us? It's got to be down to the manager's tactics. It's got to be to the
Well,
confidence, the
no,
pressure.
but
There's
Kev,
got to be something
you're
going on.
watching these games. You're watching. We are creating chances. I mean, we're missing some fucking terrible chances. Like, so sometimes I see it and I just think, what are you doing? I mean, Frank Leboeuf said the other day, when he was asked about why Chelsea can't score, he said he's screaming at the TV when Gallagher's doing a stupid, doing all these silly things when he just needs to do a 4-yard pass. And sometimes players are just overthinking it, but I
Yeah.
do think this is where people need to trust the process. I know it sounds cliche, and we spoke about it last season. We speak about it every season, but how are you going to say you trust the process in pre-season when we're winning games and then immediately cuss out the players and the manager? I mean, the whole point of bringing Pochettino in was for the long term. The whole
Yeah.
idea of signing these young players is for the long-term project.
Development.
So when
Yeah,
in the
that's what it
short
is.
term we don't do well, I mean, that's fine, but it's like a needle in a haystack because
But
if it continues like this, that's a problem. But ultimately, I think we can all agree that it's going to get better at some point. The question is it going to get good enough that, we just finish in maybe a Conference League place, or can we actually push to, aim for that top 4 spot? But
it's top 5 this season, remember? It's top 5.
well, it's top 5 depending on how English clubs do in the Champions League this season. So if we do really well, then we'll get given that extra spot. But let's just say all of our teams get knocked out in the group stages. I don't actually think we get that extra spot.
Yeah, well, they're
But
going to
I'm
be
pretty sure
Yeah,
we'll do well.
Arsenal City will go pretty far. But yeah, yeah, I just don't. It's like you said, trust the process, and it's one of them things. Let me go back to why I believe we could have done a tiny bit better. Okay, signing all these young players is good, but you should have probably thrown in out of all the millions we spent, we still should have gone and got a Vlahovic. We should have gone and got a more clinical number 9 that's a bit more proven than Jackson. I'm not denying Jackson's a good player. I think he has got potential to hit maybe in a season, 2 seasons time, the 20 GAs that we've been asking for a long time. But it's just too much on a man's head to come into a team and to gel into a system and for him to ask to be the goal scorer. With Vlahovic, I think he'd come in and he'd just score. He just scores. He knows where the net is. He scores. He can take free kicks. But yeah, there's still a January window. We have been linked to Ivan Toney. We do need another goal. We need a goal scorer in that squad. And I still think we need another Cam. Because I don't think Palmer is a natural number 10. I think he's got great ability, but he's not a natural number 10.
I don't think we need a Cam because I think when Chukwuemeka comes
Oh,
back
yeah.
and Nkunku comes
And QQ,
back, I
yeah,
think
true.
that
Yeah.
spot's okay. But I mean, just going back to a striker, I mean, we spoke about Tony. I'd be very surprised if we didn't make an offer for him, even though we are trying to protect
Ollie
Nicholas Jackson.
Watkins as well. Ollie
Yeah,
Watkins.
Ollie Watkins. That's I was literally just about to say. I mean, most teams would be happy to have him in the Prem. Would you take
Works
him? And
hard.
if you did, how much would you be willing to pay?
He's going to be a massive threat for us tomorrow. If we play a 4, it's going to be a massive threat. I think if we play Thiago Silva, I think that's the trigger area. I think if he gets in, say if Thiago Silva plays the right centre back, I think Watkins will try and get in and behind Thiago Silva because we already know Thiago Silva hasn't got the pace he used to, and that's what Watkins. You got Watkins, Diaby, and Leon Bailey, absolute threat for
Very
us tomorrow.
dangerous.
If we're not on that game tomorrow, they're gonna hit us on the counter. And Watkins has got the strength, got the hold of play. He can finish as well. His movements okay as well. I do like him, and I think he'd do a brilliant job at us, to be honest. But I don't think he's the caliber of a Vlahovic or Tony. But I'd take him in the instant. He'd get you more goals than Nicholas Jackson, 100%.
Well, he's Premier League proven as well. That's
Yeah.
what a lot of clubs are looking for, isn't it? So as long as they know they can do it in this league, then that's an extra 10, 20 million added on to the fee itself. But clubs will pay it if they know they'll get 15, 20 goals. Absolutely, mate. I mean, just going into that game in a little bit more depth. Let's talk about what Pochettino needs to do because we did change things against Bournemouth. We started Mudryk. Very, very mixed reactions from the fan base. I feel like a lot of fans on social media were actually really happy with him, but a lot of fans in the stadium were quite unhappy. You know, they didn't think he was good enough. So a bit of a contrast. Obviously, people watching from home have a better view, so I'll be more inclined to trust them. But I mean, would you give Modric a run of games, even if his performances aren't up to scratch? Because then that eliminates the excuse of him not being given a chance. Or do you still rotate and try and find the best solution that way if you're Pochettino?
This everything with this Chelsea project is time now. That's what the board have done. They've signed players that haven't got any experience in the Premier League. They haven't got experience playing at the highest level. They're young and they've got high potential. Everything about the project is time. So we can't be getting on his back after 5 games in the league. He's probably started 2 games at the 5. Too early to be deciding if he's good enough. Okay, from what he's done or in the last 5 games, has he done enough? I don't think he has. But can he change it around? Of course he can. All it takes is just a 1 goal and confidence can come running back. But I did a funny stat. I put it into the group. The Lazio keeper scored more goals than Madrid this year. Yeah. But yeah, it's one of them things. We are Banter FC at the moment. But in regards to what Pochettino could do to win the game, I think he needs to change it up a bit. I just feel like we go in and we're trying to play this possession-based football. Most games we're going into I'm looking at the stats: 70% our way, 30% their way. Most games. Teams and just knowing what we're going to do. It's more sideways and backwards than a penetrative, aggressive attack. So why don't we just sit back for once? Why don't we just change it up? Why don't we sit back, let Villa come on to us and try and catch them on the counter? And then what you'll probably find is a Mudryk can get in behind Cash, can get in behind a Dignat, in behind in the flanks. I just think what we need to do is just change it up. I think we're going ahead. It's just copy and paste every week. I just know what we're going to do at home. We're going to try and keep the ball. Villa, we're going to use the trigger spots. They're going to get the ball and they're going to break and they're going to try and score off a counter or off a misplaced pass. It's just the same thing every week. Why don't we just sit back now, let Villa keep the ball and try and get them on the counters? Let's change the style of football and see if it works.
That's fair enough, mate. I mean, I'll be honest, I can't see us doing that. I don't think that that's the way Pochettino wants his teams to play, even if it's just like a one-off game.
You got to have the personnel. You got to have to play the style of football that we want to have. You got to have the personnel. Right now, Conor Gallagher, I love the guy. I think his heart and soul's in the club, but he's not the kind of player. He's not a ball keeping player. He's more of a pressing player. So you're playing the style of football, and you haven't got the players to suit it. So you have to go with what the style of football should be. The players that you've got, and right now we haven't got possession based. But Enzo keeps the ball well, but Gallagher is not going to keep you the ball, unfortunately. So we've got to change the way we play. If we carry on playing the way we play, it's just going to be the same thing every week. 70% possession, no goals, and 2 goals to the other team.
Yeah, I mean, go on then. Just to finish it off, Kev, let's have a little score prediction from you, mate.
Oh, okay, no.
You feeling lucky? Or you still
Honestly,
not
it's
until
it's either going to be a draw or a Villa win. But if it was a betting man, I'd say a Villa win. I'd say 2-1 Villa.
Fair enough. And
I just think they're going to get us. I just can see it. I could just picture it in my mind. I think that we're going to lose the ball somewhere on the halfway line. The RB is going to get in. Watkins bang goal. I could see it's just going to be the same old unless we haven't got holding midfield. We haven't got protection for a back four. So Villa are going to be favourites for it, unfortunately.
Fair enough, mate. Well, listen, guys, thank you very much for.
Oh yeah. What's your predictions before we go?
I'm not giving my predictions this time, Kev. I'm not giving them.
What?
I said 2-0 against Bournemouth, didn't I? So,
yeah.
Go on then. I'll be honest. My optimism's gone a little bit after this Bournemouth game. It's kind of hit me with the reality of, right, I think we're hitting that train where we might drop some points for the next couple of weeks. But I did say that on the Blue Balls podcast, the last episode, I said I don't care if we drop points for the next month or two, because as long as we pick up and then get consistent after that, Other teams in front of us are going to drop points, so it's going to even itself out. But I mean, if I had to have a guess, I have to agree with you, Kev. I mean, a Villa win is probably the most likely result, especially when they've been rested with that Conference League game. But I'm going to hold it to a 1-1. I'm going to hold it to a 1-1 draw. I think we'll get our first goal in a long time, but you know, I can see Villa scoring. They've just got too many threats. But yeah, man, I mean, we'll see what happens. But listen, guys, thanks for watching another episode of the CFTV preview show. If you haven't already liked the video, just click the thumbs up. Only takes a minute. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And if there's anything you agree with or disagree with, feel free to put it in the comments. So, you know, me and Kev can have a read. But listen, guys, we'll see you on the next episode. All the best. Enjoy your weekend and up the Chelsea.